Hello SGD, Sacred Geometry Decoded, and this will be part 6 in this series, Unlocking the Giza Plateau, the Ancient Science of Astronomy, Geometry and Metrology of the Pyramids. I have added a few videos along the way, but now in this particular video I want to be looking at the Great Pyramid or Khufu Pyramid, and you can see some of the satellite pyramids there. And this will be about how the plan for the pyramids is written into the larger complex itself. So the Khufu or the Great Pyramid, and we have the 3 satellite pyramids. We also have the trial passages, and I'll be speaking about them soon. So of the pyramids, well, the Great Pyramid, that's called that for a good reason. This will also relate to the previous episodes in the series and a few others that I've posted along the way recently, and the surveying techniques and the foundations of any temple, and that relates of course to the stretching the cord ceremony and Sheshet, who's the goddess of geometry, astronomy, foremost of the builders, the female equivalent of Thoth, and right up until the last days of Egypt. For instance, here at Edfu we can see the stretching the cord ceremony. This is the back to Kasekemwe era, where we see again stretching the cord, and also written records such as in the Palomo stone of this very ancient ceremony, the foundation of a temple, aligning the temple. Now this will be a theme because Sheshet primary sanctuary was at Heliopolis. She was the goddess of wisdom, everything related to building, architecture, geometry. And the high priest at Heliopolis was the chief of the observers, the astronomer royal, and Heliopolis, primary sanctuary of Sheshet. And for instance, the very famous ancient Egyptian architect Imhotep was a high priest at Heliopolis, and even at later times he was equated with Thoth. And that's an important feature. So Thoth, Sheshet, and these astronomy. I'll link this video in the description. Hopefully it will show up in countries outside of Australia. It's only a short piece, 15 minutes, 60 minutes Australia, uncovering the ancient secrets of the Great Pyramid, where they highlight some of the work by John Romer and his particular hypothesis, which he has come up with, and I think it relates very profound and connects to this other work that's been happening. So the Great Pyramid, 440 Egyptian raw cubits at the base, that's 230 and a touch meters, or 755.851 feet on average. There are slight variations in each side. No one side of a pyramid is 756 feet. That's just not true. But anyway, the height of a pyramid, 280 Egyptian raw cubits, 146.6 meters, or 480.99 feet. Put that into scale. So this is in any city in the world, except for the major, the really big cities, but a 40-story building would dominate or be very large on the skyline, and that's the height of the pyramid. Now, buildings such as this one is mostly air, so you'd have to squeeze the air out, and then you get an idea of how much volume is in these buildings, and that's just the Great Pyramid. So this is no small thing. This is highly engineered, very precise, and the John Romer interview again talks about the precision of the build. That's a very important. It's not just the volume or the size, it's also the precision of the build. And the interesting feature, okay, we'll get to that in a moment. So the ancient architects of the pyramids, how did they transfer their designs so precisely on such a large scale? Aerial view of the 3 major pyramids, Khufu or the Great Pyramid, Khafre Pyramid, and the Menkaure Pyramid. Also worth noting, you can get a trace of it, that the Great Pyramid is actually 8-sided, and so is the Menkaure, the smallest of the 3. And when it's the smallest of the 3, I still mean it's a very, very big structure. That's the Menkaure Pyramid there because of a perspective. It looks larger in comparison. Khafre Pyramid is actually the second largest. The Great Pyramid was pi meters higher than the Khafre Pyramid originally, but because the Khafre Pyramid was built on a plateau 33 feet higher than the Great Pyramid, often you'll see people doing videos, they'll actually show the Khafre Pyramid and call it the Great Pyramid, but you can tell it apart because the Khafre Pyramid still has these casing stones at the top. Great Pyramid now, in the past they were covered in casing stones. It would have shimmered white, and it would have been, even just the size is impressive now surely, but in the past it would look something more like this with the smooth casing stones all around them. So what's actually happening is that there is a blueprint of the Great Pyramid is laid out right next to the Great Pyramid itself, something like this. Okay, so there's like an internal of the chambers and passages of the Great Pyramid. It would look something more like that, and so 280 Egyptian raw cubits high, 440 Egyptian raw cubits at the base. I'm simplifying that. The average of all four sides would be a base of 440, but no one side is actually precisely that, and that in itself contains very profound information. But essentially what we have is it's 11 wide to 7 high. 11 divided by 7 is pi over 2. So the basic design is relatively simple, but how to transfer this design into such a massive scale and to keep this precision? Well, this is something very interesting in regards to the what John Romer has presented. That link will be in the description. Rather than to scale drawing, there was actually a 1-to-1 design, a blueprint built next to the Great Pyramid itself, and it would be something like this. So at a 1-to-1 ratio, it's the best way to keep the size and angles accurate. In temples such as the Temple of Apollo at Didyma, there is still on the walls there, basically the blueprint was written into the walls as well. This is a common technique, and then afterwards they would basically scrub it away on the Greco-Roman temples, but we have traces of this at Egypt. So John Romer in the video, he goes to the east side of the pyramid. Here you can see him there with the presenter from 60 Minutes. And he points out that there are these holes on the east side, and no one really would pay too much attention to them. Thankfully he did. And what he found is that they actually form a series of survey points. Survey markers, ingeniously simple way of laying out the Great Pyramid design at a 1-to-1 ratio, and that way to keep the angles very, very accurate and to transfer this design and will make a very precise building. So this is a screenshot from the video, and this is essentially what you have happening. There's a grid here, and as he points out, this grid will transfer the angle, but interestingly, very for a metrologist, 20 cubits, 40 cubits, 60 cubits. This is there's a lot of information in there. The previous episodes I went into especially 60 cubits, and so the Grand Gallery is 4 cubits wide. Now a man, as described by the Vitruvian man, should be 4 cubits high, 4 cubits wide. This is the idealized ancient temple design, and these are all divisible by 4, and that would take a lot of description. So let's go back. So there we see the aerial view. There he is showing this pothole, actually surveyor's mark, and it's somewhere around about this area. Here we can see the gates of the trial passages. This would be an important feature. Aerial view of the pyramid design. So we see the shafts here, so that's what these 2 lines here pointing to the south are, and also this top line are the shafts leading off. So highlight the black area there, which is the descending passage, Grand Gallery, etc., the main axis of the pyramid, and you might notice that it's offset ever so slightly from the main north side. North side 755.41 feet, south side 756.08 feet. So there's a 20 centimeter difference. Even with simple tools, you would not do this. This is not a construction mistake. That's 20 centimeters doesn't sound so much over the entirety of it, 230.3 meters. But just with a rope or with a measuring rod, you're going to get much higher. This was an intentional part of a design that carries information, but that's not for the moment. So now I've just rotated that so we see the north side, entrance to the north, and here we have what is called the trial passages. Cheeky teenager climbed to the building, top of the pyramids and took this photo, but there we see the trial passages as well as the 1, 2, 3 satellite pyramids of the Great Pyramid. Here's an image of the trial passages. There's the door, and you can see those gates. So just over to the side there would be where around about this area where there are several holes. That's just the one that John Romer was pointing out in the video. So now we see the design internals of the Great Pyramid. The trial passages very closely match, but I've seen some who say precisely. From what I can see, no, not precisely, but there is an offset, and this is very important. This is okay, we'll get to that, but keep in mind that they're offset, and I'll come to that in future episodes because this is a very important feature. So the grid, 20, 40, 60 cubits, the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. And this is what they've done. They've kept it actually very simple, but very important information. So now you see that grid, and I've synced that grid with the side view, because also not just the layout as he shows here on the east side, he also points out that this grid will actually describe the offset of the internal chambers. So he's just, the white grid and the black grid, he's just slid the description up. The slight offset links the design of the passages and chambers of the Great Pyramid. Most people were looking for a single design. However, his theory, these two slightly offset designs were overlaid from one another, and they're delivering the goods, so to speak, including the grotto, no less, as well. So that's where the grotto is, and it actually matches this offset design. This is an important feature. Here's a screenshot from the J.H. Cole survey. So we get Petrie's measures as well as the J.H. Cole measures. Again, the north side is 755.4 feet. The south, or the longer side, is 756.08 or 072 feet, depending on which survey you look at. Very, very, very small margins, but there is an offset between the shortest and the longer side as well. 20 centimeters. Again, an amateur on his first day with a measuring cord could get much better than 20 centimeters. This was important in the foundation of it. We need to get it precise. The precision of the internal shafts and chambers, it's simply not, this was not a construction error. However much they want to say it was, because how could they get everything else so right? And yet 20 centimeters, again, significant difference just with a measuring cord. You get much higher than that first day apprentice. So this offset is another feature, and so now John Romer's offset plan, and now we see the view of the pyramid from the top, and note that the grand gallery, the major passages, are all offset slightly from the central axis. And I just want to point out that this grid, which I've overlaid, I've used that the dark lines, the black lines of the grid, to set that to the Great Pyramid. The central north-south axis of the pyramid is this red line. You can see where the two diagonals meet, and the chambers, again, they could have very simple. If they wanted to get that precisely in the center, with very, very simple tools, you could have got it. This is part of the design. So we see the offset there between the axis of the Grand Gallery passages and the actual middle of the pyramid, north-south. Again, I'm using these black, I'm not just cherry picking, I'm using this and setting that to the size of this plan. All we do is rotate it. I've just rotated the image. I've not resized it to match, because you could, people do that stuff, but I'm here, I've just rotated the image. I haven't resized it. And note that the axes of the center of the pyramid as well as the chambers actually matches this offset described by John Romer. Very important feature, and this is not the only evidence of this. So again, we see it. That's what it is. Now let's look at the trial passages over here on the east side of the Great Pyramid. So off to the eastern side of the pyramid, we have this feature called the trial passages. At this point, I'm going to link a video, Great Pyramid AIP channel, who come up with this concept, and it actually again matches the John Romer hypothesis, which describes the offset on the interior of the pyramid as well. So that's a diagram of the trial passages, and they're aligned. So that's south and that's north, but that's the axis created by the trial passages running north-south again, as in stretching the chord ceremony aligned to the north, just like all the pyramids, to Mesketu, and the pole star, the immortal stars, the imperishable stars, as the Egyptians called them, which was the immortal stars as described in the pyramid text as well. Also worth noting the 3 satellite pyramids, as they're called, of the Great Pyramid. Now, most pyramids have these smaller satellite pyramids, but there we see 1, 2, and 3. And how do they connect? Well, as Great Pyramid AIP channel points out, if you draw a line through the north-south axis of these, who are aligned on this central axis, and then we see the axis in grey of the trial passages, and then again back to the central axis in red of the pyramid, and then the blue line, which is the Grand Gallery and the main passages inside the pyramid. Overlay those two. Again, I haven't changed the size, I've just slid it over. This was Great Pyramid AIP channel points this out. Link to this video will be in the description. It matches again. It's okay. So trial passages in red, and then the blue line is the center of the satellite pyramids. Now, because from the angle, it's just as an illustration. But we go back and how they match, and how they match to the offset of the interior design of the Great Pyramid, as was pointed out by John Romer. Again, yes, and just as a reminder, I set the black line, so this grid matches the pyramid itself. I haven't resized them or reshaped them to get them to fit. That's an easy thing to do, just to point out that's not what I've done. And so we see this Great Pyramid pattern. The design is actually built into the larger complex itself, and it also matches the trial passages, that there is a slight offset in the pyramid, and the margin of error actually contains the information in the I'll link the series Understanding the Great Pyramid and the Ancient Sciences. The slight deviations between the north and the south, 20 centimeters, but again, even a first day apprentice could have marked that out at a higher level of precision just with a simple measuring cord. These margins of error, or so-called margins of error, so-called construction mistakes, actually contain profound mathematical information. The very close approximate of pi in the pyramid, if you include the margin of error, is essentially 99.99% and higher accurate. We also have phi and these other mathematical constants. The close approximates of 99.95% accuracy essentially reach 99.99 and higher than that if you include the deviate. If you, instead of trying to smooth over and trying to get everything to make 756 feet, which it is not, if you include all this information, and if you look at it in that sense and what it is, not what you want it to be, profound mathematical, scientific, astronomical information emerges from there, not just in the proportion but also in the metrology itself. And what's repeated on the outside is repeated on the inside, both in proportion and in metrology. This was so that any chance of coincidence can be wiped out. To call it coincidence really is denial in extremis, because it's repeated in proportion, in measurement, on the inside and the outside, and often double times over. This does not happen by accident. This is very, very profound information that they've incorporated in there, not just in the individual pyramids, how they relate to one another, but also the larger plan, how this connects as well. I'll link did an addendum for part 4.5 and the Osiris complex, the chamber in there. Again, I was looking at the 0 point, and again, Larry at Great Pyramid AIP channel questioned me on this, and I overlaid it. So this is some of the other geometric plans that people have been looking at, and it actually matches that 0 point. It's just like with John Romer's plans, just like as we saw with Great Pyramid AIP, he was looking at the offset of the satellite pyramids and the trial passages. This all lends itself back to this larger design, and coming to the 0 point at the northwest corner of Caffrey Valley Temple. And again, for instance, this is from Revelations of a Pyramid documentary, and you might note that this triangle, that's not just a random triangle. That triangle actually marks out the design of the Great Pyramid itself. So it's like a fractal on a small scale, and on a larger scale this repeats over and over, and then it connects to the seasons of Egypt, the summer solstice, the equinoxes, and the winter solstice, all pointing us back, linking for instance Kent Coway's tomb / pyramid and other features, again drawing and bringing the pyramids together. The metrology of the Great Pyramid itself also describes the distances between each. For instance, this green line, which is the midpoint between the winter solstice and the equinox, the green line is the perimeter of the Great Pyramid, including the sockets, which gives you the proportions to the size of the Earth. From the 0 point to the corner here of Kent Coway's pyramid is 600 Egyptian raw cubits. Directly emerges from the metrology of the Great Pyramid and these other pyramids that was covered in part 4. But that's what we see here. Again, Larry asked the question about the Tomb of Osiris, the Osiris complex, marked there in red. There's again very enigmatic, mysterious part of the larger Giza complex, which tend to get overlooked because of the grandeur of the pyramids itself, and how. So originally I aligned the pyramid in that sense, running the north side pointing here and the south side pointing there. But again, it was just a matter of flipping it, and it comes ever so close, probably even closer, because that was it's difficult to be super precise with the information that the methods that I have, but very, very close. And that's what's happened. There is a larger complex happening in here, and so just as a review, the blueprint of the Great Pyramid is embedded in the larger complex itself at a 1-to-1 scale. Links in the description. There are these survey markers, which are not just random, because of they show the design of a pyramid, and they also connect to the metrology, including this lovely 60, 40, 20, 40, and 60 cubits. So again, very simple techniques, just done very intelligently. This is how the ancients worked. They were able to achieve a hell of a lot using very simple tools and using it very wisely. So there's the holes, and again the plan itself. So even the offset just so happens to match the plan itself, as pointed out by John Romer. I have a lot more information to come to this, because there's actually something really beautiful happening in this central axis, which leads down through the Queen's Chamber and the subterranean chamber there, as well as the Great Step at the top of the Grand Gallery. This is just I'm just beginning for this at the moment. The offset, the so-called construction errors of the Great Pyramid blends into this. Again, I'm not cherry picking, I'm setting these scales to the pyramid itself. Now again, we see the offset. Just rotated the image, I didn't resize it to match that variation. Matches, trial passages, as Great Pyramid Channel, AIP, points out. You can see here how he's just slid the design down. And that trial passages leads to the satellite pyramids, and again that offset, as shown by John Romer, actually matches this as well. And you can't make this up. And even this on its own is, well, you should be asking questions. But then if you look at the larger the metrology, the mathematics, the geometry of not just the Great Pyramid, but the Khafre and Menkaure Pyramid, and how they relate to others. I'll do more on this, but whether it's the Red Pyramid, the Bant Pyramid, the Maidum Pyramid, others in pyramid fields such as Abu Sir, which have the same proportions of Khafre Pyramid, the same metrology, which describes that the distances from that 0 point, which is again profound information. And so this is they've left us, it's just there to be observed and and to be measured, and it actually leads to us. Well, it's a very simple plan, and that we're looking for complexity, but it's the KISS principle: keep it simple, stupid, and that's how you do. And this is by being efficient and working with logic and keep it simple, stupid, and that's how you do it. It applied to the ancients as it should apply now. And again, these designs and other geometry studies actually matches this 0-point concept, which connects to the astronomy. And again, so we see the pyramid plan, Great Pyramid is there, but also we see the larger pyramid plan, again connecting in this complex. It's like what's on the inside is on the outside, as above, so below. What is in proportion is in the measurement systems, again very much reflecting the Hermetic principles of as above, so below. And so repeat it, so any chance of coincidence just gets rubbed out. And again, pointing to a larger design, that it's not just randomly chosen where these things were built. And it's just it's there to be tested. It's there. It's measurable. It's tangible. It's testable, and yet this is considered the fringe. Well, it's measure it, check it for yourself. I hope you enjoyed. Have a good one. Please visit Larry. He's got some other pyramid videos on the trial passages as well. And I'll link that John Romer from the 60 Minutes Australia channel, where he points to this plan regards to the design and the offsets here. And these individual efforts, when brought together, they just fit. There's to say there's nothing there as well. It's by coincidence that the sun rises on the east every morning. It's at some point coincidence must be acknowledged as a pattern, and the more you look into it and the more you measure it, the more you compare it, there is very simple, very beautiful, yet very profound information in not just the pyramids but in other ancient structures, architectural practices, from the Mayans to the ancient Indians, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, Greco-Romans, the stone circles. And it's just assumed that we're at this peak, and that the ancients were somehow, inferior, and they couldn't achieve these things. Well, it's written in stone, textbooks in stone, and I can't emphasize that enough. It really is a ideology to deny this. When you can test it, you can measure it, you can observe it for yourself, and you build up at some point coincidence becomes a clear pattern. With that, hope you enjoyed. You can want to contribute to this channel. I'll put a link in the description. There's a PayPal account, SGD Sacred Geometry. And again, please like, share, comment as you will. And cheerio, have a good one. More to come. There's so much more to come to this. It never seems to end.